Okay, so here to talk about the Cavalry. I'm Adam Brand. Josh could not make it in person due to a family friend a friend of his actually who's died, unfortunately, and he's there for that. So he's actually here virtually though via Skype. So he's listening in. We have him right here for you. Probably can't see him. All right, so yeah, so quick stuff. So a little bit about me, how I got involved with this. So work for Protiviti. I do security, the regular smorgasbord of services. I'm a PCI QSA, so sorry about that for those of you. So the overview of the presentation. So we're going to I'll talk a little bit, kind of what the turning point was for me personally in all of this and getting involved with the Cavalry, and talk a little bit about, secondly, our insecure lives and how that connects with the Cavalry message and some of the uncomfortable experimentation that we're doing. So the turning point here, for me personally, I turned 35 this year, and I know that's not like super old. Yeah, thank you, I made it. I managed to live this long. I didn't screw it up yet. At least not in a terminal way, but plenty of time, yeah. But in any case, it really got me thinking about, what was I doing? What am I doing? What does it matter? So I was thinking, what I do is important. So I help people secure things, the information that maybe many of you will give to your bank or to an organization. I can help that organization protect that so that it doesn't get breached. I do a lot of important work to try and keep that information safe and ensure that companies aren't breached, and if they are breached, help them get out of it. But then thinking about it, is what I do actually important? So, okay, that's all fair and good, but what does that mean at the end of the day? These are bits of data floating around. There's a certain, I would say, lack of tactile feedback when you're working with information security. And in terms of what I do in the overall scope of the world, thinking about personally, is this something I can say at the end of the day, yeah, I really made people PCI DSS compliant. That's awesome. So, pluses and minuses. I was just thinking about this actually in the ramp up to this talk that Nick and Josh gave at DEF CON about this Cavalry and the idea that the Cavalry isn't coming, which we'll talk about in a second. And it got me thinking more about what does it mean when you say something's important. And Nick and Josh both had personal stories about how they had kind of similar realizations about the work that we're doing and whether we're touching the right things, whether we're getting the important points across. So these are some of the important things that they talked about that actually resonated with me pretty well. So, body, mind, and soul. So those are things that go beyond just, saving people from credit card breaches or making sure that their, mobile device management solutions are managed appropriately. When you start talking in these terms, it really sets a different context for the type of work that we do. So what do these things mean? So let's talk about these a little bit, and we'll talk about our insecure lives as they exist today and how they may exist. They probably will exist going forward. And let's talk about the body. So what we mean by body is we're talking about human life. So, you talk about importance of things. Human life versus what? I mean, what could be more important? And so Josh has this great slide about, information and replaceability and security and replaceability. So you're talking about securing things like credit card numbers. Okay, that's sad you got breached, but you can get a new credit card number very easily. If there's something that's related to human life security and somebody dies as a result or somebody's seriously injured, you can't undo that by calling your bank, right? I mean, you can't say, I'd please like to not have that injury. Thank you. And I thought this was a really good framework for thinking about what are we working on in our day-to-day job and how does it impact in what we're, how is what we're securing important or not. So let's talk about human life versus digital life for a second. So we talk a little bit, or a lot about actually, which browser is most secure, right? oh, there's this bone, there's these bugs, there's this bug bounty, which of these is the most secure? But some of the questions that we haven't been asking enough of, which car is most secure? When's the last time you saw a comparison of which car is least likely to get hacked through its tire pressure system, potentially resulting in an accident? I mean, that's stuff that really matters. You get in your car every day, you get in your car with your kids. Why are we not talking about that stuff more? Which insulin pump is more secure? So this one actually caught me by surprise. At the DEF CON talk, Jay Radcliffe also had to talk about this, and the fact that medical device manufacturers are putting things like Bluetooth stacks inside insulin pumps. I'm sure you guys saw the article about the pacemaker Dick Cheney had and how he disabled the wireless. And I was thinking, why does that thing have wireless to begin with? But more importantly, as a consumer, if I go into my doctor and they're like, okay, you need an insulin pump, I'm not going to turn around and ask them like I would for a browser, well, are you going to install, the Chrome equivalent of insulin pumps, or are you going to install the, IE6 equivalent of insulin pumps, right? So these are important questions that matter for us, and they matter for human life. And then even going a little bit more forward, these are questions we may be asking in the next year or so, next 2-3 years. Which refrigerator is most secure? Right? You talk about the Internet of Things and everything being connected, everything having an IP. You have Philips Hue out there where you have light bulbs that have IP addresses. And there actually are refrigerators right now that do have IP addresses and are connected to the Internet. And you say, okay, well, it's just a refrigerator, who really cares? Well, if somebody is remotely spoiling food, or if you have medicine in there that you need to keep at a certain temperature and they're turning it off at night, or if there's information in there that you're going to deem private and personal that's now shared with your insurance company, oh, guess what? You have ice cream in your freezer and you're diabetic. So these questions will be becoming more and more important as we start plugging everything that we touch, everything in our homes, into the internet. So that's body. So let's talk about the mind a little bit. So when we talk about mind, we talk about the freedom to research, the freedom to do the work that we do right now, and also a bit of our sanity, right? You don't want to go crazy, but I think a lot of us are. So here's an important question, am I a hacker? What does that mean? What does that mean to you? Does it mean that you're fraudster scum, right? These are questions that the media is raising in my mind. I mean, I know I'm not fraudster scum, but what does that mean to self-identify as a hacker? And all that negative media publicity leading to things like this. I don't know if you guys saw this court case that came out a little while ago, this judgment, where the tipping point for the court comes from evidence that the defendants in their own words are hackers. Right? So this was a conclusion that the court had reached that, oh, they must be guilty of these things because they are hackers. They must have, they must be hiding things. They must have this intent, which I thought was really interesting. So even though it's a serious privacy violation to take their computer, we're just going to go ahead and do it. Can I go to Europe with Nmap? I don't know. I mean, am I losing my ability to, as a security researcher, travel to certain areas of the world? Is it becoming illegal to teach? So you see things like this, right? Somebody getting targeted and prosecuted for teaching how to beat a polygraph. So what's next? We teach you how to do SQL injection or cross-site scripting. All right, are we going to start being put in jail for those things or being prosecuted for those things? So let's talk about SOL for a bit. So the SOL pillar of this talks about a voice of reason, vendor-neutral solutions to some of the problems that our policymakers are facing. How do you solve APT, right? Does it involve scanning all US traffic for viruses? Is that really going to solve? I mean, these are things that policymakers have considered. Are you going to use APT be gone by vendor X, that has told the policymaker that that's the way to go? How do you solve IP theft? Who's giving advice to these policymakers, right? Is the RIAA the best person to be giving advice on how to solve IP theft? Not really, right? SOPA and PIPA, we see that stuff happening. And thankfully there was a strong industry reaction to those, but it really shouldn't have gotten that far. Why did it get that far? And things like, Aaron Swartz jailed, for 35 years for downloading journal articles, stealing journal articles, right? This is not making sense to us. How do you solve hacking? What are some of the things? The Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Ridiculous sentences for the smallest thing. So if I go to your website and I see you have ID = 1, and I change that to ID = 2, and then maybe I do it really fast all the way up to 1,000, does that mean I go to jail for what I've just done? Does that make sense? Some of the other solutions that have been talked about, requiring a license for an internet connection or to browse the web. Is that an appropriate solution? These are things that are being talked about. So, yeah, this is a little bit of doom and gloom stuff, but I know I personally was thinking, well, somebody's probably working on this, right? I mean, there must be top men out there addressing our top problems, right? Doesn't the FDA, don't they have a role in medical, isn't it hard to get something through the FDA? Why aren't they looking at this stuff? Or are they? Automobile manufacturers, they have all these safety standards and the manufacturers themselves have to adhere to them. Aren't they looking in the security, adding these new features to automobiles? And we have these other organizations, I should say ISACA and IC², ACLU. There's other people that are in this domain. Aren't they working on these problems? Well, so the question that I would ask back are things getting better as a result of that? As a result of everything that we've been doing in security in the past 20 years, are things getting better for us? Are manufacturers getting smarter, right? So here we see Billy Rios in some of his research showing that there are hard-coded passwords affecting 300 medical devices. And these are things like baby incubators and pacemakers and insulin pumps. And this is recent. So, what's going on? How could this be possible? And then, as I mentioned, remotely controlled insulin pumps. Why is that a good idea? And who thought to not secure those? Is the media getting smarter, right? Are they reaching out to people like this? Legat, the world's #1 hacker. Look him up. This is not who should be on CNN representing us. Are politicians getting smarter, right? So a lot of talk about the Obamacare site and how couldn't handle 100 concurrent users, but does that really give you a lot of comfort from a security perspective, right? So the site is missing basic functionality or can't complete transactions. Do you think they had a lot of time to invest in the security of that solution? Did the politicians do their due diligence in terms of looking to see whether those companies had previous bad history with security lapses? And so, but the thought is, okay, someone will come before it's too late, right? We don't see a lot of people driving around crashing into trees because their Bluetooth or whatever in their car was hacked. So somebody's got to come, right? Somebody's coming. Okay, so the cavalry isn't coming, is the news. So newsflash, there aren't people out there doing this for us. It's up to us. So it's up to the people in this room and whoever we can talk to start looking at these problems that affect our lives, our human life, our body, our mind, and our soul. So we can look at that and we can say, okay, we can make excuses for why we can't do that. Oh, we have a day job doing X, it's too big of a problem, this is really not something that we have the skill to do, or we can try to make progress on this. So, trying to make progress, what does that look like? As I mentioned before, are we going to continue to do the same things, or are we going to try to do things differently? So let's talk about uncomfortable experimentation. Jim is looking at that like, I've done that. No, I haven't done that, is what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, so what does that mean? It means doing things in a different way and touching topics that we haven't really addressed as much as we could. So one of the ideas is, let's organize for action. What does that mean? So if you look at other industries, you look at the American Bar Association, you look at the American Medical Association, what do we have, right? Where is our voice? Where is our common wisdom being shared with people that want to know, politicians that may want to know what's the right thing to do, or media people that want to know what is the reality of the situation. So, uncomfortable experimentation. So could we do good through targeted research is a question. So what does that look like? So we have these areas like medical devices, like automobile hacking, where we have a few people working on them. But as a group, if we decide that those are areas that are important to us for our personal safety and our family's safety, what if we decided that, hey, we're going to start proactively getting a group of people together to work on these things? Getting the right message out. What if we actually try to get in front of the ball here and start looking at how do we hack the media? How do we use their system and use the media, but this time carry the correct message or a factually based message, or one that's not completely disparaging to our community? And could we change or prevent bad cybersecurity laws from even starting to be thought about in the first place by giving advice that's actually sound and that's not vendor dependent? Then the next question becomes, should we? Right? And so this has come up a lot of, this will never work. We're techies, we're not safety people, we don't have that background, we're not PR people, we don't know how to talk to the media, we're not attorneys, we don't know how to get how laws are made, and we didn't watch that video in first grade or whatever. The other idea, screw them, right? They made their bed, they lie on it. We told them, we've been telling them, but they wouldn't listen. So this is what they get. They get these insecure cars, they get these insecure pacemakers. The problems are too large, right? The war was lost a long time ago. It's too late now. The ball's been set in motion. Companies are used to doing things in a certain way, and it's really too much for us to try to take on. Okay, so yeah, this mentality, right? Which is, it's a lot of us. We see it, we joke about it, that we're, a sarcastic group or we're a skeptical group. So here's what I would say back to that is, never doubt that a group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. And I like this slide. We got Gene Kim up here, his little face. HD Moore. So the thought is, okay, look, nobody's working on this. We get enough smart people together. We get us together, right? It's the only thing that ever has changed the world. So how can we turn this thing around? So what have we done so far on this? So this is a lot of talk. I think it's a lot of. I think a lot of people are getting the message. So how do we move forward? So we've had a lot of HallCon talks. We've talked a lot on Twitter. We have a Google group that we've set up, and we've talked a lot about these issues. And we decided that hey, the next step is we need to get together in person and start hashing some things out. So that happened. So DerbyCon 2013. We had our first meeting, so September 28th and 29th. We had 100 plus that were involved in these conversations. We had enough flip charts, we had enough deodorant. A lot of thanks to Dave Kennedy and his group, the DerbyCon group, for allowing us to have these rooms for 2 full days to work through these things. So we had a lot of great people involved that helped lead the conversation, as well as providing expertise at certain key points. So we essentially had different rounds of going through these questions. So we talked about what conditions exist that we don't like. So I brought up a bunch here so far about things that affect our health, things that affect our mind and our soul, and talking as a group about what else are people seeing out there that really shouldn't be happening. And then what are some of the causes of those conditions? So why are those things happening? Why do we think those things are happening? The surface level, what do we think the root causes of those are? And then what should be done to eliminate those causes? So what do we think the solutions can be? How do we eliminate the cause of the problem so the problem doesn't happen? So these are the areas that we looked at. So we looked at medical, which I talked a lot about. We looked at automobile. We looked at media and the portrayal of hackers in the media. We talked about law and what's going on in that area, and we had some great discussions. For those 3 questions, essentially, went through each of those areas over 2 days and generated a ton of output, a ton of interesting stuff. So some of the outcomes of that, there was still a ton of knowledge sharing about what's going on out there. These experts in these areas talking about the latest, what's going on with medical devices and autos and media and cars, or in the law. A lot of good information that people in the room were getting up to speed on. Tons of new ideas. So, I know a lot of the facilitator group, we've talked about this a lot before and on Twitter, and we thought, okay, we're probably going to see a lot of the same stuff, but there were some really new and really creative ideas that came out of this. And I think the key point for a lot of us was we saw more agreement than differences. And that was really, I think, for me personally, a bit of a turning point, because I know that as a group, we like to, part of our job is to tear things down and see how they work and see how they're broken. And I think as a group, there was a lot of more constructive and positive agreement. And it was also telling that we were all, we were thinking similar things about these ideas. So that was very positive to see. So what do we have still to work on for this? So we have figuring out our identity a little bit more. So we talked about some of the conditions and what we think should be done about them. Those speak to our mission. What do we exist to do? What is our purpose? What do we believe in? What form do we take? So there's been some talk about, are we going to be a 501c3? Is there going to be a lobby element to this? Is this, what is this going to look like? Talking about, our vision for what we want to achieve. What type of change do we want to see? And what do we want to be as an organization in 5 years? And then the plan. So what do we need to do and by when? So we say we want to affect these areas. We say we want to have positive change. What do we need to do on certain key milestones to make that happen? So the but is, we need your help. We really do. So everyone in this room, I know we had a show of hands in the last talk in terms of there's a mix of developer and security people in this room. We need everyone's help to try and make this happen. None of us are doing this on a full-time basis. We're all trying to make do with the resources that we have, and everyone brings something to the table. So people that have experience with medical devices, in the auto industries, people that are media wrangling expertise or have talked to the media before and found that's something that they're good at. People that have experience with lobbying or political action, or how do you reach policymakers in new and creative ways, or just a passion to help. We've had people that have skill sets in a variety of areas, and everything's needed to pull this together and make this happen. So we do need you, we do need your help. So how do you get involved in this? If this is something that you feel is, you feel passionate about, you think this is something that you may want to help with, we have our Twitter feed, I'm the Cavalry, we have a Google group set up. It's completely open, you can join the group and contribute, you can see the discussions that we've had, share your ideas, and importantly here at this conference, we are looking for feedback and ideas. We want to know what are some of the things that you guys are seeing, what are some of your thoughts on this type of effort, how can we make it better, what are some things you think we should watch out for. So kind of going through this deck and to give you a sense for what it is that we're trying to accomplish. But really, we're interested in, and Josh is here listening, very interested in hearing any questions you guys have, any thoughts that you have, feedback. And we actually have this room for after this talk, so if there's people that want to stay and have additional conversations, we're here, I'm here, very happy to connect with people that are interested in getting involved. So the question was, if we thought about combining our efforts with other organizations like OWASP and ISSA, we have talked about that and some of the ideas that we had at this DerbyCon brainstorming session. I don't think we've gone a lot in depth in those areas and what are the areas of synergy and how we can help. If you have ideas or connections with those organizations or see a way that could happen better, we'd definitely be interested in hearing about it. But yeah, so the comment was, hackers have kind of a disdain for PR and media, and is that is that a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're going to then report badly on us because we're disdainful of them. I think that's an excellent point. We talked some about that at DerbyCon and how, we see things that we don't like in the media, and we automatically assume that the best reaction to that is to call them out on it, as opposed to being a resource to them. So talking about creative ways of how can we be a resource to the media, how can we educate them better. So one of the ideas that came out that was talked about there was, what if we had some type of knowledge project? I know Josh has been talking about this a lot as well, where if someone in the media has an article they're writing about SQL injection or a new vulnerability, they can go to this and watch a 5-minute video on this for the layperson, for media folks, is what SQL injection is, or this is what DDoS is. Please don't screw it up in your article for the 10th time. But being constructive and being helpful, and there were some people, in the room that had experience with media talking about, maybe what we need to do is give ourselves even some media training, right? Like at conferences like this, how do we speak to the media? What are they looking for? What are some caveats that you need to think about when talking to them? And some of us do it really well. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Dave Kennedy's speaking with the media, has spoken to the media on a number of occasions. He connects very well. He gives them what they're looking for, and he's also representing us well. So how can we replicate that model and do more of those things?
It's all about risk exposure. That's what they base their premiums on, what they're charging people. And they're starting to understand that many of their clients are actually increasing their risk exposure, and they haven't really had proper ways of measuring it and saying, we can reward you by lowering your premiums if you do the following things. Coming up with standard ways of saying, this is a minimal level of responsible practice. Either if you're a user, where you've cobbled together all these capabilities, IT, software, if you're a developer providing that to them, what's the level of due care we would expect to see in that area? Josh is familiar with a lot of that stuff.
So that's in terms of providing information to insurance companies as part of these health monitoring and all these other trends.
And by the way, there's a lot of reports, and there's other people involved in the auto industry who've been focused on doing this. On the medical device side, there's been several GAO reports that have come out with that as well. There's a lot of recommendations in that area. The auto leverage side.
Yeah, definitely. We're welcome to hear more about that. I think some of the challenges too that we see as a community is we don't often enough go outside of the community to connect with people. And so part of what we were talking about at DerbyCon is, what if we had a directed effort to actually go out into like an automobile conference, right? And have a talk there, meet people in that industry. Same thing with medical devices. Getting out there outside of our comfort zone, outside of our echo chamber, and actually starting to connect with people.
So was your idea to get involved and actually change your actuarial tables so that they are more incented to work with security companies?
It is. The problem is they don't have the objective criteria that you typically look at in the other actuarial tables, and understanding a risk exposure associated with this. And there should be, you'd like to be able to reward those for doing the right things, as opposed to just say, well, there's all this bad stuff. And so actually the way of incentivizing them is to lower the premiums. Either that, or maybe we can even look at changing the laws on the capital gains. We've got tax incentives for going green. Why not tax incentives for cybersecurity?
Yeah, interesting.
There's one big problem with that, though. If you look at the actuary tables in the insurance industry when it comes to car accidents and almost any other branch of insurance, the mathematics behind that are sound and have a huge amount of history to back up. If you look at risk management, information security, we suck horribly. The risk management of most information security is fake math, is a lot of guessing, and there's no history to back it up. That's why most insurance companies are so hesitant to really push forward on cybersecurity insurance in certain cases because we have such a bad history.
Before we go down that, not too far, I think what he's really just saying is apply them the data. They can come up with their own actuarial tables. We don't need to create them for them.
But what I'm saying is, Robert, it's going to take a long time and more history before those actuarial tables can be as in depth as every other area of risk management. financial risk management, car accident risk management, life insurance. We have so much data to back that up. My conjecture is we don't have that in information security.
We do have a whole growing body of it, but it changes so fast. Well, that's my point. Like car accidents.
Question on, there's sort of a division of software engineering called safety engineering, which is typically relegated to like air traffic control systems and military stuff. My guess is in some of those sort of critical industries there is laws and compliance issues going on, which while safety and security is not completely one-to-one, there's enough similarities that we should be able to leverage something from there.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good idea.
So there's a lot of regulatory and statutory authorities that go with safety. And the FDA actually came to this as help. And I'll use the implantable medical devices as an example. That was one that they said, well, that's more of a security issue you're bringing up. We only have statutory authority for safety. I said, stop. You don't need new authority. If we can demonstrate that in today's environment, if it's not secure, it is therefore not safe. You don't need to go ahead and have security added to your authority. And this is a clear example. If it's not secure, it clearly is not safe because people could die because somebody could do something in today's environment.
Yeah, well, it's heartwarming to see that that's actually part of the discussion. Because
Actually, that's the language in the GAO report
Yeah.
as well.
Okay,
Actually, they put that in.
cool, good information. Any other?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Oh, Josh has a comment real quick.
One of the nice threads here that we're hearing from the questions is, I'm going to use a metaphor. We know how to maybe look at a new iPhone and map out the architecture so we can jail. Escape the sandbox, move laterally, move up, move left, move right. One of the exercises we're doing in each of these swim lanes is identifying pre-existing organizations that may be assets or maybe obstacles. Because on none of these are we starting from scratch.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And that's part of the changing the image and working on some of the important issues, the hearts and minds. It's synergistic. So if we start working on issues that affect human life, we start working on issues that affect our families and our children, then there's it becomes easier to do positive media publicity for our community as well.
And by the way, there is a whole initiative, it's called Stay Safe Online, that's supported both, not just by the government, it's many .orgs who are out there supporting that activity, including ISC² and others who are actually trying to push that out into schools. It's not aimed just at kids, it's also for those who are not.
One really good resource.
It is. It's a good.
One quick comment about that, though. I believe that education does have some value, not zero value, but some value. The problem is, I could give you top 10 things to go do, and you not even be a little bit more safe because of how many different attacks there are. The problem is, I think that what we really need to be focusing on as an industry is default secure, not default insecure.
Correct.
That is very pervasive in our industry. You can turn security on. All it is, there's a button for that. You know what I mean? That should be enabled by default, and then you have to do work to get yourself unsecure, because that is.
I 100% agree.
But the entire industry is doing it wrong right now. Everyone in the industry has that weird pervasive thing. Well, you can get extra security if you want to pay for it. It's like, no. The security should be default. You pay for the insecure version.
Thank you all for your time, and I look forward to continued discussions.